3 months ago, I uploaded a video titled, "We're Making Our Own Monster Collection Game." After almost 3 years of designing Fakemon, I thought it was time for me to flex my creative muscles and kick off an entirely new project that was 100% original and 100% more complicated to approach. Designing Fakemon is fun because all of the bones of a strong concept for a fantasy world are already there for you to build off of. Pokemon games adhere to a consistent formula of 3 starters, 2 box legendaries, and recurring character roles like the professor, the gym leaders, and the villain team. You can simply swap out X for Y, and people will enjoy watching that process. Starting entirely from scratch, however, with a different world, a different story, new tone and themes, new design conventions, a more adult demographic, reimagined player mechanics. I don't even know what kind of game I want this to be yet, or if I even want it to be a game at all. In a previous video, I talked about using a top-down approach to turning this concept from an idea into a reality, taking my story, visuals, and other artwork and using that to inform the rest of the game. To me, a game is a storytelling device, something that will either engage a player through the narrative laid out by the game, or by the stories that the player can create themselves using the game as their own creative medium. My priority here is to create a compelling story that gets people invested. If that means creating a fun, engaging game that puts a new twist on the classic collectible monster formula, so much the better. On the other hand, Apocryphal, up to this point, has been a story told through still images and written word. A part of me wants it to stay that way, and maybe use all of this lore to create something like a novel or a comic book, rather than a playable game. What's fun about working on this project with a top-down approach is that I can continue to develop the world, story, and characters without having to restrict myself to one type of finished product or another. Whether this concept ends up being an open-world adventure game, a tabletop RPG, or a series of books, the world I'm creating will be consistent and thoroughly explored. So as I take you through this next expansion of the Apocryphal universe and introduce you to some of the new characters and new enigmorphs, I want you to think about the world and the story. What kind of medium do you best think fits Apocryphal? If you're thinking game, then what genre? RPG, strategy, mystery, action, adventure? Or do you imagine it as a TTRPG, something you buy a physical copy of and play in person with a group of friends? Your feedback will be invaluable to me and will help inform the direction I want to take this universe going forward. Like I said, my main goal is to create a story that gets people invested. I want to use the best medium possible to make that goal a reality, so let me know what you're hoping to see become the final product. So far, we've seen a few of the enigmorphs that inhabit the world of Apocryphal. If you're new here, I recommend attending the orientation seminar I uploaded entitled, "I Designed Gods for Our Monster Collection Game." In a nutshell, enigmorphs are anomalous entities living in secret here, in our world, as the result of extra-dimensional interference. They can be anything from a corrupted crow to a sentient cog, or even something as frightening as Kamazat's, the fear of the end. It is the responsibility of the Hunter's Hope Club to seek out, document, and study these anomalies so that we can better assess the threat they pose to humanity, if any. The Hunter's Hope Club was founded by Professor Richard Dorr in the mid-1800s, and though the professor has since passed, the organization is still run by his surviving co-founders. Armina Cain is the daughter of Irish immigrants and the current head of security for the Hunter's Hope Club. Cain grew up with nothing, constantly moving from shanty to shack as her father struggled to find work. Cain is disinclined to divulge much, if anything, about the majority of her youth. Some theorize she attempted to disguise herself as a man so as to enlist in the Union Army, though this endeavor must have been a disastrous failure as there is no evidence that she has ever served in any military body. At some point in her life, Cain was arrested and imprisoned for the murder of a man who she believed killed her father. She was eventually released and relocated to Butler Hospital for bouts of spontaneous hysteria and hallucinations. It was here that she was discovered and recruited by Professor Richard Dorr, who recognized the signs of her insanity as reactions to contact with enigmorphs. She was one of the founding members of the Hunter's Hope Club, thrilled to have finally found a place that she could feel at home. Armina Cain oversees all of the club's security operations, ensuring that its members and other assets remain safe. Unlike some of the other founding members, Cain does not believe the enigmorphs can coexist peacefully with humans, and insists the club's effort should be directed at eradicating the creatures. Nevertheless, she adheres to the club's code of conduct and even commands a few enigmorphs of her own. Cain has taken to using the enigmorphs as weapons, extensions of her own will and desire to control through force. She trains new recruits on the intricacies of enigmorph on enigmorph combat, one of the several methods the hunters use to neutralize threats. Though this approach to enigmorph management is frowned upon by some of the members of the HHC, Cain is adamant that they must fight fire with fire. Cain takes a considerable amount of pride in her grit and unwavering convictions. Her prosthetic leg was fashioned from ivory and she wears it proudly, a trophy of sorts, emblematic of her sacrifices and tenacity. This skeletal accessory has earned Cain the nickname Ladybone. Initiates under the instruction of Cain find themselves in a sort of boot camp, forced to adhere to strict regiments that Cain believes are imperative to ensure the safety and continued secrecy of the Hunter's Hope Club. Stay on her good side and Armina Cain will prove to be a fierce, loyal ally. Anger her, however, and you will learn the hard way why there has only ever been one head of security at the HHC. If you're watching this video right now, there's a good chance that you love designing characters. And if you like designing characters, there's a good chance you're gonna love the sponsor of today's video, Unveil. Unveil is a new, inclusive platform for artists, writers, world builders, and character creators. Unveil is anti-AI and never NFT, with the goal of inspiring and motivating creatives to continue on their journey and build their character and story portfolio. Social media isn't what it used to be. Apps like Instagram and X make it more difficult for artists to get noticed if they're not making short-form video content to show up in the algorithm. Unveil, on the other hand, is a platform made specifically for artists like you and me to share their work and meet other like-minded peers. It's easy to get started. Once you've made an account, you can upload your original characters and set up profiles for each of them. You can include multiple images for each characters, as well as a detailed list of traits to further characterize them for your audience. It's actually a really great way to organize your own thoughts for later reference. Here's Araminta's current profile. I will be adding more later, and I'll be adding the other two characters we'll meet in this video, but no spoilers yet. There's even a category for worlds. You can organize your characters by which fictional universe of yours they belong to, then share them so that other artists can find your work and get excited about your stories. Unveil is 100% free to use, and it's available right now. No promo code, no weirdly specific discount, it's just free. If you're a character designer, don't let this opportunity slip by. The most invaluable resource available to artists in the modern day is the ability to connect with a community and share ideas. And there's no better place to do that than Unveil. Click the link in the description to get started now. Thank you to Unveil for sponsoring this video, and now we have some more characters to meet. Abigail Malakostra is one of the founding members of the HHC, and arguably one of the most secretive, a designation that is hard-earned among the enigmatic higher ranks of the Hunter's Hope Club. To lower-ranking members of the club, she appears as an elegant young woman with pale skin often likened to porcelain. As it turned out, this comparison is more descriptive than it is a simile. In fact, Malakostra only presents herself with this mask in public and to newer members of the club. Her true form is that of an anthropomorphic crustacean, a startling reality for many. The nature of Abigail Malakostra's appearance is a secret guarded by herself and her closest confidants, but she is not an enigmorph. As it turns out, there are anomalies living in secret among us other than the enigmorphs. It was with this alluring human guise that Abigail Malakostra won the hearts of the people of Providence, working her way into some of the most exclusive and influential social circles in the city. Eventually, Malakostra would meet Professor Richard Dorr through her illustrious connections, and he immediately saw through her disguise. Instead of outing her publicly, Dorr saw an opportunity to recruit a powerful ally into the folds of the Hunter's Hope Club, and Malakostra was more than happy to be appointed yet another position of high authority. She signed on as one of the founding members and the head of public relations for the HHC. The actual goings-on within the walls of the club's headquarters remain a secret to the general public, but the HHC does have a reputation within the city of Providence. It's Abigail's job to ensure that the people of Providence see the club as a trustworthy, if not unremarkable, pillar of the community, and she manages and secures financial donations from numerous benefactors throughout the city. Within the club, Abigail instructs initiates on the art of subterfuge and disguise. The enigmorphs that she trains specialize in shapeshifting and altering the appearance of others. It is with the help of her butler, a species of enigmorph called Molnarence, that she is able to create her human facade. Molnarence, or Mr. Mulligan as it is known by those outside of the club, can shapeshift into a human form for extended periods of time. Enigmorph subterfuge is a skill used by hunters to help them navigate hazardous field operations, and those who study under Abigail Malacostra soon become masters of disguise. Though only Malacostra and the other founders truly know who she is and why she's here, the head of public relations for the HHC is well liked throughout the ranks of the organization. She is patient and good-natured, though how much of this amiable disposition can be believed as anything other than manipulation is hard to determine. For now, though, the HHC is only grateful that she's on their side. Oliver Krain had a troubled childhood. Relentlessly bullied for his size and interests, he was never able to find someone who would take him seriously, even as an adult. This was until he met Professor Richard Dorr, who took a vested interest in the young man's personal study of what he called the science of the impossible. Krain studied science as a student, but he had always been more interested in what his teachers told him could not possibly be than what actually was. He saw the impossible everywhere he looked, flaws in the perfect set of laws his superiors had insisted were absolute. Of course, he kept these findings to himself. He was far too used to being laughed at to ever present such theories to anyone. It wasn't until Professor Dorr had shared similar research with Oliver that he finally had some reassurance he wasn't going insane. Dorr welcomed him into his tightly knit circle of confidants, and the two men exchanged stories, notes, and their general excitement to have finally found a kindred spirit. Dorr took Krain under his wing, helping him with his studies and teaching him what he knew. Oliver was much younger than the professor, but he saw potential in the lad. So much so that he entrusted Oliver with the entirety of his research on the topic of enigmorphs, a library of journals, charts, and illustrations that he had accumulated over decades of study. After Dorr's sudden and unexplained murder, the other founders of the HHC agreed that Oliver Krain should take up the mantle of the HHC's head archivist. He became the authority on enigmorphs, instructing initiates on everything they needed to know about finding, capturing, and training enigmorphs of their own. Professor Krain is also in charge of vetting and recruiting new members of the HHC, seeking out those with the insight to see that which others dismiss as impossible. He hopes to extend the same sense of tolerance and inclusivity that Professor Dorr had, never turning away an initiate so long as they can prove their open-mindedness and dedication to unlocking the mysteries of the universe. Krain is still young, with a lot left to learn. Nonetheless, he works tirelessly to uphold the integrity of the Hunter's Hope Club, and carries on the late Professor Dorr's work to protect humankind from the threat of the prime enigmorphs. Those who work with Oliver Krain agree that his charisma overpowers his insecurities. He is charming and attentive, and certainly not unattractive. He is known as the brain and the brawn of the HHC, surprisingly fit for a man so invested in intellectual pursuits. Older members of the club recount an occasion in which Oliver bested Armina Cain in an arm wrestling contest, though she will deny this with her dying breath. The three surviving founders of the Hunter's Hope Club each represent a different facet of the club's strength. In a world of chaos, mystery, and unpredictability, there is no one answer that can solve every problem. Sometimes you must fight, sometimes you must flee, and sometimes your wits will be your weapon. It's up to you, the hunter, to determine how you progress through this world. If this concept does become a game, these characters and their roles in the world will help inform the way a player progresses through the game. Regardless of gameplay, however, the varied approaches the different founders of the HHC take with the enigmorphs is relevant to the themes of the story. There is no right way for the hunters to confront the enigmorphs, no single answer that will solve every problem. In the context of game design, this means multiple different gameplay routes for the player to take that will keep the progression feeling varied and exciting, as well as different options for different types of players. In the context of storytelling, this is simply the nature of the world of Apocryphal, the overarching theme of the story that binds all of the characters, events, and lore together. Once again, your feedback is invaluable here. I want to know what you guys think of these new characters, but moreover, I want to hear your thoughts on what kind of medium would work best to tell this story in. I've already gotten a lot of ideas from fans already, but considering these new addition to the world of Apocryphal, what other things do you think are worth considering? Leave all of your thoughts below in the comments. Thank you guys all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and the newest expansions on the world of Apocryphal. Stay tuned for more updates. Thank you again to Unveil for sponsoring this video. Be sure to check them out. It's legitimately a very cool site. Peace. I'll see you all in the next one.